Howdy again. Before we jump into a tune, I wanted to do just a real quick video for those of you that come from outside of music and haven't been exposed to it very much. This idea, and talk about this idea of what keys are and scales. The scale, most people are familiar with a scale from the do, re, mi, do, a deer, female deer, and the do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. Your ear understands that pretty much intrinsically, whether you know it or not. So, for instance, if we start on an A note, so if you went do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do, I bet you could sing that. And that is a major scale. So there's a pattern of notes and spaces between the notes that define a major scale. And no matter what note you start on, the same pattern applies. And we'll talk about this a lot more in another video. But in this one, just suffice it to say that there is a pattern, and if you keep to that pattern, then it's going to make a major scale. And the way it works out of the key of A, which is a friendly key for the fiddle, is you start on an open A note, you put your first finger down to make the second note of the scale. The 2 is a B note. A, B. And then you leave another bigger space in between that, and you play a C sharp. Then you don't leave much space at all. You basically touch these together, and that makes a D. Now, patterns are very useful. And the good thing about the key of A here is that once you've learned this pattern on the A string, you can jump over here to the E string and play the same pattern to complete the scale. Different notes, but same pattern. So we were at D here. Now, let's move over to the open E string. First finger, F sharp. G sharp, second finger E, up 2, do again, or an A note. And so what you'll notice there is that some fingers were close together, like the C sharp and the D. And that's that jaws sound, that's what, they're what you call a half step apart. We'll get more into that. And then some were further apart. And that, and which pattern you use in the sequence is what makes that a major scale. And it's the same for all the keys. And so let's go over that again and look at our spacing, okay? So let's start on an open A. We leave a big gap, what I'm calling a big gap, at least on this instrument, in between the nut here and this finger. So you go from an open A to B. So that's kind of like a big step or a whole step. is what we'll call it, and what everyone calls it. So here is our first step. It's going to be a whole step. Whole step to B. Now there's another note there. There's a B flat there. But in this case, that's not part of the A major scale. You got to make the first step is a big step. So we go from A and big step to B. Good. Now, the next note is another big step. And so we don't put these together. Instead, we make a wider separation between the fingers to play the C sharp. So that's a start on A, big whole step, and then you get to that jaws sound, which is a little step. And on the fiddle, half steps, little steps, same thing as half steps, are pretty much your fingers are touching, just to ballpark it. Now, on a fiddle, anytime you hold your hand, this is what we call first position, like the regular place where your hand goes to. Not up here, nothing crazy, just where your hand naturally falls. When you're in first position, and if you put down your fourth finger, it actually plays the next note up, or the next string up. So it's whenever you jump strings in this scale from D to E, that's actually another whole step. And if you don't believe me, just watch the distance between my third and fourth finger. So I could have went, yeah, but no, and that would have been a half step. So here's the whole step. And that gets us to this E. And then there's another whole step. Whoop, that goes to the F sharp. And then another whole step up. Boop. That gets us to a G sharp. And then another little step that gets us to an A. So that's all a scale really is different spacing between the notes. And if you want to play a major scale, then that spacing is you play the first note you want to play, in this case an A, and then you use the pattern. So A, whole step, to the second note, whole step, half step, whole step, whole step, whole step, half step. That's not easy, especially starting out. So make sure that you have some sort of tuner or something where you try to just do something as simple as trying to find where that note lives. Because, you know, for this instrument, it's all about muscle memory and trying to get your brain and ears and the wood connected somehow. And so get used to that pattern. The other thing I think that's useful is thinking about the numbers of notes in a scale really quickly. And so A would be 1 when you make that first whole step to a B in the case of the key of A. Your second note is a B, so that's a 2. Your third note is a C sharp, so that's a 3. Your fourth note's a D. Fifth note's an E. Sixth note's an F sharp. 7th note is a G sharp, and the 8th is an A. Now, if you look around much, you'll see other chords like ninths and flatted this, flatted that. But that's the fundamentals of all that. It's just counting up notes that are in a particular scale. A is 1, 2 is B, 3 C sharp if you're in A major. And then that, though, the useful thing about that is that it can be transferred over to other strings and other scales. So you know that if you want to play out of D, let's say D major, you go to a D string and you can play the exact same pattern you did when you started on an A. So if you know you go to a D, open D, and you play that same pattern, you're playing a D major scale. And so D, E, F sharp, G, A, B, C sharp, D. So in D major, in this case, you're going to have a D, E, or 1 is D, 2 is E, 3 is F sharp, 4 is G, 5 is A, 6 is B, 7 is C sharp, and brings you back to D. Same thing on the G string. We can play through the G scale. We start on an open G. G, A, B, C, D, E, F sharp, G. And those numbers then out of instead of in A, the 2 second note was a B. If you're out of the key of D, the second note's an E. But if you're out of the key of G, then your second note is going to be an A. G, A, B, C, D, E, F sharp, sorry. So E, F sharp, G. Notice that those patterns are the same. And so with the big steps and the whole steps and the half steps. And so one of the very effective things is, I think, working on that scale. Again, it will probably feel a little bit simple or boring, I want to play a tune that I can play. But take a bit, in the same way that you were working on getting your bowing, where you could bow things evenly and get good tone, just slowing down and trying to learn to land on notes with your tuner, just learning to go, A to B. So 1 to 2 there, right? A to B. And then A to maybe your third finger. A to your, second finger on the C sharp. Or open A to your 4th note of the scale, a D. And and I automatically use this handshaking thing that gives it a little, that makes it quiver a little bit. And so that's called vibrato. You don't have to do that. That's another skill took me a long time to try to get my fingers to wiggle in that way. But so if you just want to just like that, and then go over. And then back down. You don't have to do this for months, but do it. I would do it to the point where you don't really have to think about where do I put my fingers, to play really close to in tune. So when you think, I want to play an A scale, your fingers don't have to really like hunt around. No, I ain't right. No, you want to just be able to sit down and your brain connect up. That part of your brain can turn on this new thing you've learned, and now you can play it on down, but for right now, that's plenty. Because if you can get good tone out of that and you can play it nice, then you can play it on the other strings as well, and that can be later lessons. But okay, so now with that background in mind, we're going to move on to the next video, which is learning a tune and Mary Had a Little Lamb. So let's go.